Hello, students. I hope you are all fine and in good health. I am continuing from where I left in my previous audio discussion. So now you see, already he had taken those 30 kronas and he went from that place. Now let's see whether what will happen with the rat trap seller, because now the story will revolve around him. He is the main character, as you know by this time. We don't know his name, just we know that he was a rat trap seller. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased with his smartness. Obviously, now he had stolen the money, 30 kroners is in his pocket. He felt relaxed a bit also, he felt happy also. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, but must turn off the road into the woods. Now he thought that it is better for me, I should go by the forest area. I should not move by the public highway, because if I move by the public highway, I might be robbed of my belongings, and most importantly, I might be robbed of the 30 kroners that is with me. So it is better I should move by the forest region, or I should move by the forest area. So let me continue. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, but must turn off the road into the woods. During the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. Now, the first 1 hour, it was no problem for him. He had full energy and he moved on. But later, as the time progresses, he found that he was moving around the same place only. He haven't made much progress. So that is because the forest was a big one and it was like a puzzle. It was like a confusing forest. He was not finding a way out. So I repeat, during the first hours, this caused him no difficulty. Later in the day, it became worse, for it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. He walked and walked without coming to the end of the wood, and finally he realized that he had only been walking around in the same part of the forest. Now he went on traveling, and as I already told you, that finally he realized that he is moving around the same part of the forest. So throughout the entire day, he went on moving around the same part of the forest. He haven't made much progress either. All at once he recalled. Recalled means he went on pondering or recollecting some thoughts in his mind. So I repeat, all at once he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Now his own turn had come. He had let himself be fooled by a bait and had been caught. Now he realized that why he had stolen that particular 30 kroners from the leather pouch of that old man, because he realized that that is a trap. My temptation, my greed of stealing money from that leather pouch had now made my life a hell. Now I am in a big rat trap. Now what is to be done? The whole forest, with its trunks and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed in upon him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. Now it is like an impenetrable prison. The prison surrounding with branches, thickets, and fallen logs. The whole forest is something that he can't actually get out of it. It is like an impenetrable prison. The whole forest is compared with an impenetrable prison, and it is very difficult for him to escape. And it seems that he could never escape this place. He felt lost. He felt that he was totally lost. So, dear students, now I am moving on to the next page, page number 35, the very first paragraph. I guess up to this it is very clear to you. So, now I am moving on. It was late in December. Darkness was already descending over the forest. It was December, so it was getting dark. This increased the danger and increased also his gloom and despair. He was feeling very lost, totally lost. and since darkness was descending, he was feeling anxious and he was feeling very upset because throughout the entire day he roamed and finally he came to the same part of the forest. So ultimately he haven't actually moved out of the forest, and he avoided the highway also because the fear of being robbed. Now since darkness is descending and the month has been mentioned December, he is feeling a bit anxious and he is feeling scared also. Now what will happen with him? Finally, he saw no way out, and he sank down on the ground, tired to death. Tired to death, you can say totally exhausted. And he was totally exhausted. He found no way out. Now, what is to be done? But thinking that his last moment had come, now he was getting so depressed that he thought that his days are about to end. Or rather, to say in other words, his life was about to end, he was thinking. But just as he laid his head on the ground, he heard a sound, a hard, regular thumping. But just he laid his head on the ground, he heard a thumping sound. It is like a tremor or a thumping sound. There was no doubt as to what that was. He raised himself. Those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill. So, might be there is a factory nearby, an iron ore factory. So maybe this is the hammer strokes from an iron mill factory. So again he got a bit pumped up. He got a bit optimistic that there might be a way out. Who knows? He raised himself. Those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill, he thought. There must be people nearby. And he even thought that, yes, then obviously there might be people nearby, because if there is a factory nearby, then there might be a people nearby, because he heard some regular thumping sound, hammer strokes. So definitely there might be some people nearby. He summoned all his strength, got up, and staggered in the direction of the sound. Summoned actually means, dear students, he gathered all his strength. Then he got up and he went in the direction of the sound to see whether, because now his main target is obviously a place where he can take shelter and a place where he might be feel safe. So he is now following the sound or the source of the sound, as you can say. Now, dear students, I am moving on to the next paragraph. See, it is written, the Ramsjo Iron Works, which are now closed down, were not so long ago a large plant with smelter, rolling mill and forge. Yes, the Ramsjo Iron Works, it was nearby with all the essential ingredients that are being found in an iron mill, like smelter, rolling mill and forge. In the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges and sculls slid down the canal, which led to a large inland lake. And in the winter time, the roads near the mill were black from the coal dust, which sifted down from the big charcoal crates. Now, during the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges, they used to slid down the canal. And during the winter time, see, it is written, the roads near the mill used to be totally black. Black because of the coal dust, which came out of the big charcoal crates. That is the reason the drains used to be totally black. During one of the long dark evenings just before Christmas, the master smith and his helper, two new characters, one is the master smith, another one was his helper, sat in the dark forge near the furnace, waiting for the pig iron, which had been put in the fire to be ready to put on the anvil. So they are working, these two are working regarding with the smelting of iron and all this. So the master smith and his helper, they were present inside the factory and they were working. Every now and then one of them got up to stir. Stir means to move actually. The glowing mass with a long iron bar, returning in a few moments, dripping with perspiration. It was winter, but since they were very much close to the fire, they used to perspire. So sometimes the helper used to do it, sometimes the master smith is to do this work. So I repeat, every now and then one of them got up to stir the glowing mass with a long iron bar, returning in a few moments, dripping with perspiration, or you can say sweat, though as was the custom. He wore nothing but a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. And as a custom, because they are working under the furnace or near the furnace, you can say, so they are wearing only a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes and nothing else. All the time, there were many sounds to be heard in the forge. The big bellows groaned and the burning coal cracked. So, lot of noises. Sound of the burning coal, cracking sound of the burning coal can be heard. If someone comes nearby the iron mill or Ramsey Iron Works or that factory, a lot of sounds can be heard by that person, like the cracking of the burning coal getting cracked, the sound of that. The fire boy shoveled charcoal into the mouth of the furnace with a great deal of clatter. Outside roared the waterfall, and a sharp north wind whipped the rain against the brick tiled roof. So, a north wind was also blowing. A sharp north wind was also blowing by. So, it was late evening in the month of December. It was probably on account of all this noise that the blacksmith did not notice that a man had opened the gate and entered the forge until he stood close up to the furnace. Now, because of all this noise, even the noise made by the waterfall and the north wind whipping the rain against the black brick tiled roof, so in the midst of all this noise, the rat trap seller already entered by opening the factory gate. So his presence at the very beginning, it was never felt by, but later they both saw him. Later they means the two men saw him. So let's move on. See, it was probably on account of all this noise that the blacksmith did not notice that a man had opened the gate and entered the forge until he stood close up to the furnace. Surely it was nothing unusual for poor vagabonds. Then the master smith and obviously his helper, master blacksmith and his helper, they both saw the vagabond. That is the rat trap seller, and they were not surprised because it is a normal scene that sometimes many vagabonds they used to come and they used to take shelter for the night. So it is something they were quite used to it. So I repeat, it was probably, surely it was nothing unusual. Unusual means strange. It was not unusual for poor vagabonds without any better shelter for the night to be attracted to the forge by the glow of light which escaped through the sooty panes and to come in to warm themselves in front of the fire. So it was nothing unusual because sometimes the tired travelers are attracted by the light that is to come out of the factory. The blacksmith glanced only casually and indifferently at the intruder. He looked the way people of his type usually did, with a long beard, dirty, ragged, and with a bunch of rat traps dangling on his chest. So, this is the physical description. He is slightly better than a beggar, as you can say that he was having a long beard, he was dirty, he was wearing some dirty clothes, torn and ragged, and obviously a bunch of rat traps were dangling on his chest like a pendulum. So this was his entire description. He was slightly better than a beggar, as you can say. He asked permission to stay, and the master blacksmith nodded a hearty consent without honoring him with a single word. Now he asks permission that from the master blacksmith whether he can stay here. So the master blacksmith gave him permission but was not indulged in a conversation with him. The tramp did not say anything either. He had not come there to talk, but only to warm himself and sleep. Even the tramp also, he also haven't interacted with them in such a frank manner. His main purpose was to take some rest, and he decided to take some rest. Because and another important thing is that his other intention was to warm himself, and that also he did. In those days, the Ramsjo iron mill was owned by a very prominent iron master. Prominent means a very renowned, whose greatest ambition was to ship out good iron to the market. Import and export of iron. That was his most main duty of that prominent iron master. He watched both night and day to see that the work was done as well as possible. And at this very moment, he came into the forge on one of his nightly rounds of inspection. Now, the most prominent iron master, the owner of this Ramsjo iron work, he came. His main work was shipping of the iron, that is import and export duty, as I told you. So, on his nightly rounds, he came for his routine inspection. Now, let's see what happened. And he saw the rat trap seller also warming himself up and sleeping near the, inside his factory, near the furnace. Now, let's see. Naturally, the first thing he saw was the tall ragamuffin who had eased his way. Slow close to the furnace, the steam rose from his wet rags. The iron master did not follow the example of the blacksmiths, who had hardly deigned to look at the stranger. He walked close up to him, looked him over very carefully, then tore off his slouch hat to get a better view of his face. Now, the iron master or the owner of this Ramsjo iron work, he went straight towards that rat trap seller. And as you know, the rat trap seller was warming himself up, he was taking rest. But the master blacksmith and his helper, they haven't had a conversation with the iron master. But he went very close. He went very close to the man, and then he looked at him very closely. But of course, it is you, Nils Olof, he said. How you do look. Now he thought that this rat trap seller with all beard and with a very haggard face, looking very tired and exhausted. Okay, so the iron master thought that the rat trap seller was one of his old acquaintance by the name of Nils Olof. So I repeat, how you do look. The man with the rat traps had never before seen the iron master at Ramsjo and did not even know what his name was. But the rat trap seller, he haven't recognized this iron master because he never saw this man earlier. But the iron master, he thought that the rat trap seller was his old friend by the name of Nils Olof. But it occurred to him, if the fine gentleman thought he was an old acquaintance, he might perhaps throw him a couple of kroner. Therefore, he did not want to undeceive him all at once. Now, the rat trap seller thought that if I say yes, then out of pity and out of sympathy, he might give me some kroners. By looking at my pathetic condition, he might feel a bit of sympathy towards me, and out of pity or out of mercy or out of sympathy, he might donate me few coins, or rather to say few kroners. So it is better I go on acting that I am his friend. Now this is the another biggest crime that was being done by the rat trap seller. The first one, he had stolen the 30 kroners. This time he decided to take a mistaken identity, or rather to say, he decided to take a fake identity. Now let's see. Yes, God knows things have gone downhill with me. Now, as if he haven't seen this iron master previously, but he thought that by looking at his pitiable state or his condition, the iron master might feel a bit might sympathize with his condition and might give him some kroners. So he promptly told that, yes, I am your friend. Yes, you are right. Things are not well with me. It went a bit downhill with me. So now let's see. You should not have resigned from the regiment. That means one thing is clear, that Nils Olof, the acquaintance of the Iron Master, he was in the army. Because how can we guess it? Because the word regiment has been written. So let me continue. You should not have resigned from the regiment, said the Iron Master. That was the mistake. If only I had still been in the service at the time, it never would have happened. Well, now of course you will come home with me. Now the Iron Master told the rat trap seller, who gave a fake identity, that he was his old acquaintance by the name of Nils Olof, and the Iron Master was also in the army, it seems so. He told that if I would have been with you, this condition, it would have never happened to you. This condition would have never happened to you. But now I don't want to listen to any such thing. You are about to come home with me. To go along up to the manor house, and manor, it's like a big cottage or a big house, manor house, and be received by the owner like an old regimental comrade. That, however, did not please the tramp. But obviously, now he thought that instead of giving me some kroners, this Iron Master is requesting me to come to his house. But remember, he is now thinking at the back of his mind that he had 30 kroners with him. Now he is thinking that whether it will be appropriate for him to go along with this man, because this man at the end of the day is a stranger to him. So I repeat, to go along up to the manor house and be received by the owner like an old regimental comrade. That, however, did not please the tramp, because it's a fake identity he is carrying along with him, so that he thought that out of sympathy the Iron Master would give him some kroners that might help him also. But he found that he is moving towards the more dangerous situation. It seems that now the Iron Master is very much eager to take him along with him to his house. Now, dear students, I stop here in this audio presentation. In my next audio presentation, I will continue with the remaining part of the story. Dear students, kindly go through it. It's a lengthy audio. Kindly you listen to it attentively, and if there is any problem, any doubt, please do ask me. Thank you, students. Thank you all.